There is a delight in the hardy life of the open. There are no words that can tell the hidden spirit of the wilderness, that can reveal its mystery, its melancholy, and its charm. The nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation increased, and not impaired in value. Conservation means development, as much as it does protection. Theodore Roosevelt. In the early 1900s, President Roosevelt held a White House conference on conservation. As concerns about natural resources and wildlife grew, Americans were spreading west, replacing vast forests with cities, cropland, and pastures. Arkansas was changing, especially the wildlife. Elk, bison, and swan were completely gone from the state. Ducks, quail, and fish were harder to come by. Something had to be done. In 1915, Act 124 was signed into law, and the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission was born.
In 1916, Arkansas's first game wardens were hired for $80 a month, and they had to provide their own horses. Times have changed, and so have our tools, but the call to protect our state's wildlife and natural resources never will. I take a lot of pride in knowing we're all carrying on the legacy of those original 9 wardens.
In 1918, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act was passed. Unregulated hunting had caused populations of many bird species to decline sharply, and market hunting posed a similar threat to North America's waterfowl. The act set federal regulations on the hunting of migratory birds. And nearly 100 years later, that means plenty of ducks for us today.
During the 1920s, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission took steps to increase the deer population in our state. As late as the 40s, the deer population remained bleak in Arkansas. Hunting was closed in several counties. But progress was being made, and with the help of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, record harvests have become the norm with each deer season. One of the state's oldest and most successful fish hatcheries was dug by hand and by mule right here in 1928. As director of the Game and Fish Commission's Fisheries Division for many years, some of Joe Hogan's innovative principles for raising fish in ponds and transporting them across the state are still practiced today.
In 1937, the Pittman-Robertson Act provided federal assistance for projects to restore, enhance, and manage wildlife resources. Arkansas has used millions of dollars over the years for habitat projects just like this one.
In 1945, Amendment 35 became effective, making the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission an independent state agency. This gave the commission much needed stability and ushered in the way we still do business today.
This place is legendary among duck hunters. Thanks to the foresight of game and fish managers and commissioners nearly 70 years ago, this place is now known as one of the best places in the world to hunt mallards and flooded green timber. Balameda is one of the greatest places for the public to come hunt, and we're very fortunate to have it.
Thanks to the Dingell-Johnson Act signed in 1950, when you make purchases like this, you're actually giving back to fishing in our state.
In 1951, this beautiful place was completed. It's been stealing the hearts of fishermen for generations.
At the request of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, NBC came to film a live duck hunt in 1956. And more than 250,000 ducks filled the air in front of the cameras on that day, and outdoorsmen have been flocking to our state ever since. 7 years later, I produced the first of many long-running fishing shows shot here in Arkansas.
How about that?
That's pretty solid, yeah. Appreciate your help.
Yes, sir.
Now, technology has really changed, but the thrill of filming the great outdoors never will.
We were known as the bear state long before we were known as the natural state, but black bears were almost hunted completely out of the state of Arkansas. Today we have over 5,000 bears in the state, thanks to the reintroduction effort in the 1950s and 60s. This reintroduction effort is recognized as the most successful reintroduction of a large carnivore in history. And we're very proud of that.
In 1971, hunter education classes began in the state of Arkansas. First and foremost, the Arkansas Game and Fish wants to make sure every hunt ends safely. It is something that has given me peace of mind and helped me to enjoy our hunting even more.
Can you imagine this beautiful spot being underwater? That's what would have happened had dams been put in place in the late 1960s. In part, thanks to the Arkansas Game and Fish, this became America's first national river, the Buffalo National River. Hundreds of thousands of people come to the Buffalo National River every year.
elk once roamed Arkansas far and wide before the settlers transformed the landscape. Against the odds, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission brought the elk back beginning in 1981. By 1998, the herd had grown large enough for a limited hunt. I got this one in 2004.
We're known for our miles of trails, wild game, and breathtaking views. When the 1/8 cent conservation sales tax passed in 1996, it gave the Game and Fish Commission much-needed funds to keep creating the habitats and improving the quality of wildlife our state reveres so much. It's nice to know that everyone in the state has a hand in helping nature.
I started my boat company right here in Arkansas. And in 2001, Game and Fish made boating safer for everyone by instituting boating education courses.
In 2001, the first of 4 Arkansas Game and Fish Nature Centers opened in Pine Bluff. Part classroom, part museum, part playground. These nature centers offer visitors walking trails, exhibits, and hands-on fun.
My love of fishing started long before we founded the Ranger Boat Company. In 2012, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission resolved the minimum flow issue with the assistance of a lot of people. Now, trout have the habitat and conditions below Bull Shoals Dam to grow and thrive, and will benefit generations to come.
More than 100 years later, it is our mission to continue to carry out the legacy President Roosevelt once spoke about. Cherish these natural wonders. Cherish the natural resources. Cherish the history and romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children's children.
This is our Arkansas.
My Arkansas.
My state.
This is my outdoors.
My weekend.
My life.
This is my everything.
This is my calling.
This is my legacy.
Thank you, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission.
You make the deer woods great.
You make the fishing great.
You make my state great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission.
Thank you for protecting our most valuable resource for 100 years.